You might remember, some time ago, I said I'd never review a piece of kit that I hadn't purchased or borrowed with my own money. I don't believe any YouTuber can stay truly impartial if they're being given loads of free stuff. But for this video, I've broken my own rule. And before you all start calling me out in the comments, I think I can justify it. Ta-da! You see, last year I personally purchased and reviewed a 15-inch production monitor from OC, the Megamon. I thought this monitor had amazing picture quality for the money. If there was a graph for picture quality versus cash, then the Megamon would be right up there. I also met quite a few people who bought this monitor on the basis of my recommendation, so I take my responsibilities seriously. But my review wasn't all roses. I did criticise the row of identical buttons you couldn't use in dim light, and the user interface was a confusing nightmare to use on set. Now, although OC had absolutely nothing to do with my original video, I think they might have watched it, because a few weeks ago they contacted me and said that they were going to upgrade the Megamon. The Mega15S would have new buttons, a totally redesigned user interface, and even a brighter picture. Would I like to see it? Well, obviously I think anybody interested in the original Megamon would want to know if this was a worthy upgrade. So I said yes. And here it is. The Mega15S. When you first take the Mega15S out of the box, it's difficult to spot the differences from the previous version. And it comes with exactly the same really useful bag that has a hole in the bottom so you can drop it straight onto a lighting stand, and also a built-in sunshade for use outdoors. Looking at the back of the monitor, a few small things have changed. We now have two SDI outputs instead of the composite BNC video input. We've lost the 3.5mm audio input, but gained a USB-C socket for calibration. More on that later. The biggest physical difference is around the front, where we've lost 5 of the confusing buttons, which have been replaced by a little joystick thumb wheel thingy. The printing on all the buttons is now in white instead of grey, and although this isn't such a clean looking design, it's definitely more usable in low light. So is this redesigned interface and little joystick thing a big improvement? Well, yes, I can do everything now without even looking. And navigating around all the functions available on this monitor is as easy as rotating and clicking the little thumb wheel. For instance, if I want to go into color management and change the LUT for my Sony camera, I can just hit the right button, go down to choose Sony, and I can even choose which version of S-Log or whatever I want to use. Click the button and it's done. But things get even easier because you can program any of the 4 function keys to quickly access any of these monitor functions. And you've got up to 8 pages of memories. For instance, on my page 1, I've got my center cross as function key 1, I've got zebras as 2, a waveform monitor as 3, and even my LUTs as function key 4. And these are all accessible with one key press. You can turn them all on and off just by pressing once. And you've got 8 pages of those function keys. Switch to a second page, and now I've got anamorphic, all my guides. On my page 3, I can bring up all my scopes with one key press, or peaking, false color, and sharpness. But you can set up the pages however you want, which makes it really easy to use. So for me, the new user interface and the joystick thumb wheel are a huge success, but these things aren't as important as picture quality. Now at this point, I must confess it's difficult for me not to pixel peep, because I can put the old Megamon and the new Mega15S next to each other and compare pictures. And when I first did that, the new monitor looked a little yellow in the whites and not as black as I'd like it to be. And it's at this point I discovered that the new monitor, the only controls you've got are backlight. There's no contrast control, no tint, no sharpness, just the backlight. So I thought I'd calibrate it. Now in theory, you just plug your color puck into the USB and hit go on the menu, because the calibration software is built right inside the Mega15S. And, oh, all I got was an error message about the panel white. The press release that came from OC mentioned something about panel polarization. So as a last-ditch effort, I wondered what would happen if I turned the monitor on its side, 90 degrees from normal. I started the calibration again and, surprise, surprise, it works perfectly like this. It's very odd, but this might be a clue about what OC have changed with this panel. I must admit, once I'd managed to calibrate the Mega15S, I was really impressed with the picture. It matches the old monitor perfectly, and it's really impressive. When you put the 1500 nit Mega15S next to the 1000 nit Megamon in a dark room, with both backlights maxed out to 10, the Mega15S on the right does look a little brighter. I'm not sure it's 500 nits brighter, but then both monitors are using exactly the same power, so the battery life should be the same on either. If I move a little off axis and change the viewing angle, the brightness difference between these monitors is even more noticeable. So I think we're back to the polarization thing again. It's like the extra brightness comes from efficiencies to the panel design rather than simply winding up the backlight. And where you can really spot a difference is outside, in daylight, with buckets of glare. I caught the only afternoon of sun we've had in the UK this summer, and I pointed both monitors straight into it. With this tough test, you can now see the Mega15S on the right is noticeably brighter. I'd still want to use a sunshade, but that's now a really useful difference for anybody wanting to work with these monitors outside. So in conclusion then, this Mega15S is an improvement over what was already a great value package. It's easier to use and the picture quality is superb. But would I sell my old Megamon in order to upgrade? Well, probably not. You see, unless you put them side by side, it's really difficult to tell the picture quality apart. It is brighter, but you only really notice that if you're outside in a lot of glare. What OC have done with the Mega15S is make a really great monitor a little bit better. Thanks for watching. Big difference.
Big to a cameraman.
Well, they're the only important people, aren't they?
Well, evidently.
That's what matters.